From the studio of WTAP Plus, you're watching Women of the MOV with host Phyllis Smith.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Women of the MOV. Today, I have a finance boss with me today. It is Sharon Anderson, the CEO of Williamstown Bank. Hello. Thanks for joining me on this Friday.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course. So I obviously work with words. You work with numbers. So I love to hear more about a woman in finance. Can you tell me kind of more about your journey to CEO of Williamstown Bank?
So I didn't plan to be in finance. I actually went to college after I graduated from PHS and went to college. And
hey, PHS grad, yeah. And you got the red on too.
I know. I have to, do my best on the colors here. But I went to college in Tennessee, a small school in Tennessee, King University, and I came back with a history degree. I hadn't quite graduated yet. I had finished a semester early on campus so I could save money, came back, got married. But the summer before my senior year of college, I needed a job, as everyone does, before you get married. And I could not find a job anywhere. Like, I went to restaurants. I don't know why I was not hired by some of these places. But I ended up, I had put in at a temp agency, and they called and said that Williamstown Bank needed a part-time receptionist for the summer and that it would last me all summer. They asked if I could do it. Sure, I can answer the phone, no problem. And at the end of the summer, they knew I was coming back and I'd have a few months before I would graduate, and they offered me the full-time receptionist position starting in January of 2002. And I've been there ever since. So immediately after I started, within a couple months, they put me in the bookkeeping department. History major in the bookkeeping department, balancing the bank.
Yeah.
It was interesting, but I can honestly say in that department, I learned more about banking than I could have ever imagined, kind of from the back end. And everyone thinks banking is just making a deposit, getting a loan, and there's so much that happens kind of behind the scenes. And then it just kind of went from there. The door and the timing was right. The opportunity to move up was there. Some of our senior managers were kind of starting to look towards retirement at that point in time, and I went kind of from bookkeeping to the assistant manager of our Parkersburg office, and then it just kind of came back up and oversaw all of the operations. And in, oddly enough, March of 2020, I was afforded the opportunity to step into the president and CEO position, and I've been there ever since. So
right in the thick of COVID.
Yeah, I literally flew home from a conference in Orlando, Florida, the morning of the meeting that I was going to be named into this role. And it was the first time that you noticed people using hand sanitizers, masks. And it was like, oh, this is kind of weird. And then it was literally 2 weeks after I was named into the position, the government shutdowns happened. We closed our lobbies. We had just opened a new office in February 2020 with this concept of coffee shop to bring people into the bank, and here we're closing our lobbies and keeping people out of the bank. So it definitely threw, I think, not just us, but everybody into a tailspin, and we just had to pivot, and here we are 6 years later.
A lot of things changed during that time. A lot of the plexiglass, between people.
Yeah, and just even finding little things, hand sanitizer, and of course banks are considered essential businesses, so we had half our staff. We divided our staff. We extended our hours. Here I am new in my role, and I don't see my full staff together for the first 6 months because of the working conditions and making sure that we could keep running. So we had separated key people and our staff into 2 shifts, and it made for an interesting transition from our old president into me, but the team, they pulled it off, and it was amazing how well they adjusted and how well we were able to pivot. And I think some of the technology that we had just implemented helped us pivot really quickly and be able to kind of adjust to this new normal. And like you said, kind of everything changed from 2020 on. And even, as a lot of small businesses have faced, hiring and retaining employees and the competition that came from that, and then just first all the stimulus money that people had and that came into the banking system, and what do we do with it? Oh, let's loan it all out, and then rates go up. So it's just been kind of a crazy ride. But I guess that's how you grow sometimes, is from the unexpected. You don't grow when you're comfortable. You grow when you're tossed and faced with challenges. So
this is true. And so being the CEO of a bank, I'm sure that's a lot of responsibility. Can you kind of like walk me through like what maybe like a typical day for you maybe?
Well, of course, I work for Williamstown Bank, and that's a community bank. And what I think one day is going to look like ends up looking completely different. But we all wear different hats. And so, really it's my job to make sure my team has what they need to do their job and to try and ensure that, everything is running smoothly. The strategizing, what are we doing from a project perspective, pricing and all those kind of things. But really a lot of my time seems like it is just managing people. And, we've got about 60 employees. We've grown. And it's just sometimes you have to manage the people and then let them do their thing. I've got a fantastic team, and they're able to run with things if you give them a project or an assignment. And it makes my job easier when you're surrounded by a fantastic support staff like I am. And so really a lot of my time is just spent on kind of the higher level, big picture things, but also the managing of the people day to day and trying to figure out who's in the right seat, maybe who's not in the right seat, and just making sure that we're able to kind of run as a unit and not a bunch of individuals.
Is it stressful? It sounds stressful.
Kind of depends on the day. I think sometimes it is. I love what I do. I'm passionate about it. We've been able to do so much for the community in my time at the bank, and I think that that's so important. And the ability and the platform that I feel we've been given to give back to the community through through our coffee shop, the Giving Cup, and through other things that we've done in the community, that helps alleviate the stress of the position. I will say it absolutely is a stressful position, and I have to be able to separate my work life from my home life, and I have to be able to balance that. And sometimes it's when you're a leader, you set the tone. And so if people see I'm stressed, it will stress others out. Or if they see that the senior management team is carrying a burden, then that trickles down to the rest of your team. So it's more of I have to keep my game face on at all times. And I think that's what gets stressful, is trying to make sure that I'm being as optimistic as I can, even on those bad days, and trying to set the tone for the entire team, because they really do pay attention and they can tell if you're carrying a burden or if there's something that is bothering you. And so you really have to be able to kind of keep that game face on. And I think that's the hardest part, is just always being optimistic. And yes, we're on the right path, and yes, we're doing the right things. And I think that's really where the stress comes from, is just the emotional and the mental side of it.
It seems like it's like a lot of pressure, but I feel like some people kind of thrive under pressure,
I'm the kind of person that if I'm going on vacation, I pack the night before. So, I give me a
Pressure's
deadline,
on,
and
yeah.
I thrive under pressure, and I thrive under a deadline. And I love the fact that because we're a community bank, I'm not siloed in one role. I get to see what the lenders are doing, and I get to meet the customers, and I have a very open door policy. My office is right in the middle of the bank, so everyone who's coming and going, you're greeting them, you're talking with them, and you get to hear where the customers have concerns and what they're worried about, but then you also get to interact with the employees. And just being able to have my hand, I've always been the person that likes to kind of not be focused on just one thing, and this role allows me to, maybe sometimes I feel too much, but I love being able to do different things and see different things and have my hands in it. And so I feel like it's a perfect role for me, and it's been a wonderful experience. I can't be thankful enough for the opportunity that I was given.
Yes, and women in leadership, we love to see it. And I know we were kind of talking a little bit earlier about how, like, sometimes people mistake you for, like, the teller, like.
Yeah, so community banking, and I've been at one place my whole life. I've been at the bank. This is my 25th year. So I have one frame of reference, and that is Williamstown Bank. But community banking, and when you go to conferences or when you go to maybe meetings and things like that, I don't know how to say this appropriately, but banking has always been a historically male-dominated industry, and especially in the upper management levels. And so when I go and, I became CEO at the age of 40, when you go to conferences, you sometimes don't fit the typical male, the male pale stale.
Yeah,
I know you were hoping I was going to say that.
Never heard that before.
And that's it's a common term that's used in the banking industry, and it's not in any way derogatory,
right.
But it is always been a male dominated industry. And at the bank that I work at, before me, there was only one female president, and that was Mrs. Chris, and her family owns a large majority of the bank, and she really set the standard for what I feel is possible. And I was afforded the opportunity to work with her for several years before she passed, and then we had two longtime employees, Pete Butcher and E.K. Sleeth, that had been the CEOs before me, and they kind of from early on kind of started preparing me for a role that I didn't know yet that they were even considering me for. And, I learned so much from them. I could not have asked for better mentors. And it, I think, is a very interesting thing when you go to a conference and they say, well, what do you do? Oh, I work at a community bank. Oh, are you like a teller? No.
I run the whole thing.
And it's and that's a very important role. And then they'll ask what I do, and I tell them, and sometimes you get and it's not an expected thing. But I think one of the neat things is West Virginia really is actually kind of paving the way. There are multiple female CEOs of community banks. Community banks have a national, trade association, the Independent Community Bankers of America, and actually right now the national chairwoman is a woman. She's a female, and she's a banker from West Virginia.
Oh, wow.
And so it's gaining ground, and I think my team, we are largely there are females in the bank, but it's very much it's becoming more of a female oriented industry, and I think it's a great opportunity because I think we bring so much to the table, and a lot of maybe ways of thinking that aren't the way we've always done it. And I think that that's needed, as a community bank. It's an industry that's shrinking, mergers and acquisitions, and it's just getting harder to compete with the Bank of Americas and the Chases, and of course the infinite resources that they have and the very, very limited resources that we have as a small bank. But I feel if we can differentiate ourselves and if we can do things differently, that helps us stay relevant and viable for the future in the long term, and that's really what we're focused on. And I think we have a fantastic team, both male and female, but I'm excited to see what the future holds, not just for myself, but I've got a phenomenal number of young, up-and-coming stars that, we're trying to prepare for future roles. But I also hope to be able to be a mentor for maybe someone that's coming up into a new, maybe female CEO or executive position, because it is a different world when you hit a certain level of management. And there are challenges that you face that you don't realize you're going to have. And I remember someone telling me years ago, Sharon, one thing to remember is the higher up you go, the lonelier it gets. And I don't think a lot of people go into roles realizing that. You sometimes have to learn it the hard way. But I just hope to be an example and to be able to help prepare others for maybe eventual leadership opportunities, whether it's in banking or in the community or whatever. So I'm grateful, and despite the stress and despite the challenges, I wouldn't trade it.
Oh, I have so many questions.
Ask away.
So I wanted to kind of ask you, have you always been ambitious?
So I am number 4 of 6 kids.
Oh, okay.
And so I am picture dictionary definition of a middle child. So, growing up and my parents, my dad was a pastor. That's why we moved around a lot. And my mom, of course, supporting 6 kids, she ended up having to go back to work. And we just had to learn to kind of, you were either ambitious or you just didn't get stuff done.
Got left behind.
Yeah. And, I guess I look back to even we lived in Pendleton County years ago, and it was a small town, and I was in like 5th grade, 4th grade, and someone had given us a pool pass. Okay, I'll go to the pool every day. Went by myself. That was when, no one thought about the creep down the way or anything like that. It was here, good outside, and you come back for lunch and you come back for dinner, and you don't have have cell phones. But I remember sitting around the pool, and I just started watching people swimming, and it was like my family couldn't afford swim lessons. Okay, I'm going to teach myself how to swim. And I got in the water and I started watching people, and it's like, okay, first thing I got to figure out is how I'm breathing. So there was lots of water up the nose and stuff, but then I finally figured that out. And then I finally figured out, okay, this is what I do with my arms and this is what I do with my legs. And then finally one day I was like, I'm going to go off the diving board. And it's just this like, okay, there's a lifeguard there. Okay, I think I can do this. And I'll jump towards the ladder. And I did it. Okay, this is awesome. Like that feeling of adrenaline, and I did something that I didn't think I could do. Yeah. So I've always been the kind of person that the goals I set are for me. They're not for anyone else. I just want to know if I can do this. And so through my whole, academic, it was kind of, okay, I want to graduate summa cum laude. Okay, I'm going to hit that goal, or I want to do this, or I want to do this. But it was always more of just, it was internal for me, not something to be shared with the world, and I think that has helped mold me into where I'm at today and has been transformational in my career. And I now can look back and say, man, I guess maybe I was ambitious. I didn't go into banking ever thinking that I would be in the position I'm in now. I had just graduated college. I had just gotten married, and I needed a job. But then I quickly found that I loved what I did. I loved the mission of serving the community and the customers, and that drove that ambition even more to kind of like, okay, I want to be the best that I can be for Williamstown Bank. They've been very good to me, and it was, my daughter had to have open heart surgery when she was 8 months old, and I didn't have the time I needed to take off, as far as vacation time and stuff like that. But the bank was very generous and gave me all the time I needed to make sure that I could be up at WVU with my daughter. And there's a sense of loyalty that, came with that. I couldn't be more grateful. And I try to pay that forward as much as I can. But little things like that, I think, drive me to want to even be better and to make sure that our employees feel that and see that, and that our customers see it.
Yes. I was just kind of curious because I know sometimes, when like you're a woman and you're ambitious, it's kind of like, I don't know, like sometimes I feel like women are maybe like a little bit like discouraged from being like, hey, like I want this, or I'm going after this, or if you like are ambitious, like you can be, but it's got to be like kind of like
under the table.
Yeah.
Under the table.
On the down low. And I just wondered if you kind of had like a perspective on that, because I know, like you were saying, there's so much gatekeeping in finance.
Yeah.
And there's so much, like, when women are just financially independent, they can just do so much more.
I think, gosh, that's a hard question.
I know there's like a couple layers, like, stacked on top.
I think that it's inspiring, and I'm inspired by other women, and seeing what I have been fortunate to meet many phenomenal female bankers throughout the state, throughout the country, just through different connections that I have. And even before I was in the role that I'm in now, again, my predecessors just really fed me, and I was that person. I probably drove them crazy. If I was doing something, it wasn't just to check the box. I had to know why.
Yes.
Why is it this way, or what does this mean, or why am I adding a debit? Like, please make this make sense. And, and they were fantastic in answering those questions and feeding that natural curiosity that I had. So I'd say it was initially more of a curiosity than an ambition. But then as I grew and I learned more and I broadened my knowledge, then it was never really, I never imagined myself in this role. And I feel that for me, even though I am ambitious and I am curious, at the same time, I'm very much a believer that the higher up I go, the more it is my responsibility to serve those that work with me. And so I think all of that helps drive that ambition, but it's not in the typical, for me, the way I want this or I'm going after this. I'm ambitious and I want to do more because I want to be the best version of myself for my team and for the bank. But it's also, I want to be able to serve them, and my ambition, I don't know if that makes sense or not, but my ambition is
like internal.
Yeah, it is internal. And I think that, I have been humbled so many times.
Haven't we all?
Even in ways that I didn't realize I needed to be humbled.
The universe
and I
comes
think,
up with great,
great
stuff,
and it's like, okay, phew, that one hurt. That was, and sometimes you get up from one challenge only to find yourself knocked back down by a bigger challenge. And I think if you don't have ambition and if you don't have this passion for what you do, it's easy to not get up. And I think that, I've always been the type of person, okay, I will get knocked down, but whatever I do, I'm going to get back up. I'm not going to let whatever it is that's knocked me down win. So I don't know if that really answers your question or not.
Yeah,
but
I was going to kind of ask you, I'm sure, you probably have to wrestle with doubt a lot,
Really.
So I was going to kind of ask you, how you do that as a woman in a really high-powered position.
It is. And again, it can be lonely. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that. There are just things that you can talk about that you can't talk about. Obviously, we're a very heavily regulated business and industry. And so there's just a natural level of confidentiality that you have to have. And so there are times, when we opened our new office in Lübeck in February of 2020. Here's a nonprofit coffee shop, and it's a donation-based coffee shop that gives back to the community, and it's to drive people in, to build relationships, and kind of get that face-to-face contact. And then, COVID hits, and what are we doing to and you start doubting? Okay, was this the right move for us? Did we do the right thing? And then as COVID, just wears on you and goes on and on, then you start doubting, okay, did we make the right decision in doing this or not doing this? And did I make the right decision by, keeping all of our, we made a decision early on, and it was because everywhere you saw on TV, it was we're laying off people, or and one of the first questions I was asked by my chairman, and it wasn't because it was just, this is what you're seeing. The immediate response was, we have to lay people off, or we have to, and my response to that was, we can't, because if you lay them off, first of all, you're not going to get them back, but we can't only not lay them off. A lot of our tellers and frontline people, some of us could work from home, and that was fine. It's kind of hard to be a teller from home, or, a new accounts person, or even a lender. And it was, not only do we need to keep all of our people on board, but even though some of them may only be working 25 hours a week, we got to pay them their full salary and their full benefits, because if we don't, then how can we expect them to take care of our customers? And, you make those decisions kind of on the fly sometimes, and you're left, did I make the right decision? And I think any leader who says they don't ever doubt themselves are lying, because, there have been so many times where I've cried. They sometimes call my office the den of tears. And not, again, I'm passionate for what we do and for the community, and just for my team. When they hurt, I hurt. it burdens me right now how much gas is and how much my employees are having to pay for gas just to get to and from work. And I have many times on my way to work, or I've sat in my office after a really hard day, maybe something hasn't gone my way, or just through some really unique challenges that we have faced in recent years. And I know that there have been multiple times where I was completely ready to throw in the towel. And I completely, okay, God, I'm done. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And then it's like God takes the towel and throws it right back in my face and says, no, this is where you need to be. Yeah. And this is what you need to be doing. And it seems like whenever I have really been in those periods of doubting, not why am I here as in like on this earth, but like, why am I here at this point in time? Yeah. Why am I here? And I don't understand, like, how did a history major get here? But then it always comes back to it's where I need to be for whatever reason. And it seems as though whenever I'm in my biggest moments of self-doubt or doubt, it's when something then happens, either with an amazing story from a customer, maybe that customer that we helped get that first home that maybe didn't think they were going to get that, or that first car payment, that first car that you get, and in the fun of, driving off the lot, or even the wins of your employees and seeing them grow and develop, or, some of the stories just that we've been able to hear from what we've been able to do for the community. It's always when I was self-doubting and in my lowest probably times that something always happens that brings me back and grounds me and says, no, like, there are going to be hard days. There are going to be challenges. You're going to doubt yourself, but this is where you need to be. And this is why, because look, this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Williamstown Bank. And I every time it happens, it seems like it's
That's wonderful.
It's that way. So.
Was your dad a Methodist preacher?
He was.
Oh my gosh, I'm Methodist.
Are you?
Yeah.
That's why we moved around so much.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
So, I was just kind of curious. Yeah.
Nope. You nailed it.
Methodist girls. That's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that faith kind of plays a role for you, because you don't really think about faith and finances. Maybe you do sometimes. Might go hand in hand.
I ground myself in my faith. And again, I truly look back at some of the things over the past 26 years, and it's like, okay, this has not been my plan. And when I started as the part-time, I didn't share, so I had trouble finding a job that summer, and I had gone even to the hotel. It used to be out on Route 50. It's now closed, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll clean rooms if I have to clean rooms, but I needed a job. But when I said, I can work anytime. And I said, the only day of the week I can't work is Sunday morning. And they're like, sorry, that's like one of our main days. And I left, talk about self-doubt, okay, here I am, almost a college graduate, and I couldn't get a job as a maid at a hotel. Like, talk about feeling pretty low. But it was actually that day that I got home and I got the call from the temp agency about the position at Williamstown Bank.
Wow.
And I look back now and I'm like, okay, I don't know if that was a test or what, but from that very first moment that the opportunity came to go to Williamstown Bank, and just through some of the things that we've seen over the course of last several years, it's sometimes things happen, you just can't explain it.
Yeah.
And I very much believe that things don't happen for a reason, and I very much believe that God has a plan, and I have been blessed with a wonderful platform, and I want to use it to the best of my ability. And I feel that that faith is key in that. And when on those days you're doubting and you're kind of in the pits, it's, Sharon, no, like, get up. You're going to be okay. I've got a plan.
Keep
okay.
going.
That's, I have to trust and not worry. And that seems to be that's just
the motto. Yeah.
The motto a lot of times is faith over fear.
Yeah. And kind of like you were saying, I didn't even realize you're probably a part of a lot of people's like biggest moments in their lives.
I mean, from the banking perspective, like I said, it's great when, you get to experience or hear the stories of those life changes. We're having a baby and we need to buy a bigger car, or we need a house, or we need, and you get to be a lot of that. And I think it's so rewarding from just a personal perspective to see these things materialize for people. But it also, I love getting to help build up the next generation of leadership. I love getting to see people, sometimes you raise them up and they can't stay. They outgrow what we can offer them as a small bank, but it doesn't keep me from cheering them on. And you hope that they remember their time at Williamstown Bank and that they're proud to have worked there. But even some of the things that we've been able to do in the community has just completely left me just shocked at how much a small bank like us has been able to do, and in some of the ways change lives that we never imagined in some of the things that we've been able to do.
Yeah, we've done a couple stories on the Giving Cup. Yeah. You helped North Star.
North Star and House to Home and the Arc of Mid-Ohio Valley. Local schools were partners with 4 local schools, Williamstown, both schools in Williamstown, Lubeck Elementary and Parkersburg South. And we're really being able to hear the stories of how these nonprofits are using these funds. And I'm passionate about being able to help. And, the idea was, how can we give back in a way that has lasting impact and not just a one-time thing? And the Giving Cup is almost at $90,000 that we have received in donations. And when you see how that money is being used by these nonprofits that are really struggling for every dollar, that's lasting impact. And I feel that's what separates the community banking industry from the Bank of America's and the JP Morgan Chases and stuff like that, is just the heart to give back to your local community. I live here. My daughter went to PHS. I, go to church here. When people ask, okay, where should I put my money? Well, look at the scoreboards at your local fields and figure out who are the sponsors and who's really putting money into this community that you can see, and every dollar stays local.
It seems like you do a whole lot of good.
Well, my team probably is like, oh, here she goes again. Because we do. And, really I was thinking about kind of how we got started as a team in that. And again, I very much, and I think this is, again, my upbringing. I watched my mom and dad just, and everything that they did, it was to give back. It was never for, notoriety or anything like that. It was just because that was what they felt they should do. And I think so many people go through life and they're missing something. And I think what they're missing a lot of times is that ability to feel the joy that it is in giving back to people. And the thing that I think really was the catalyst for our team, it actually was 10 years ago, and a coworker and I were just talking about this today, when the floods devastated the southern part of the state.
Oh, yeah.
We decided, my predecessor was in Alaska on a 2-week trip at this time, so I was kind of, in charge, and we're like, well, surely we could put some things on social media. Maybe we can get enough to take one load down to a place that hasn't gotten the age yet. It's been a couple weeks since the storm hit. we ended up with 2 full trailer loads the first day. That week, the first trip, that we went down. In a week's time, we ended up with 2 trailer loads of stuff that we ended up hauling 2.5 hours to Clay County. Oh, wow. And we couldn't even walk through our bank. Everywhere you looked, our teller lobby became a food pantry as we were sorting food. And my office became cleaning supplies. And you couldn't even walk through the bank. And we ended up going down there, and we got back. And one of my coworkers, I was like, man, there was so many people that were just lost everything. And these people were so grateful. They weren't taking more than what they needed. Hey, I need a shovel, or I need a mop, or I need shoes because I lost my shoes. And I was sitting on my porch, and she calls me and she's like, Sharon, I'm like, I know we need to do more. And she's like, I know. And we talked about it, and we're like, oh, we're really going to get in trouble. But you know what? This is the right thing to do. Yeah. And our predecessor was completely fine with it. We made jokes like, he's going to wonder what in the world happened. But we ended up making like 10 trips down there. And over a period of 6 months, we had, through our community bank network and through people who just saw what we were doing on Facebook, we ended up receiving over $30,000 that we were able, one trip, we're going down and we're cleaning, mopping, you know, all that kind of stuff. One trip, we're taking loads of furniture down for people who lost everything from the Habitat Restore, all the way up to Christmas when we had about 25 families that we adopted. And these were families that had lost everything. And we were able to buy them towels and dishes and bikes for the kids and stuff like that. And, you know, I think if there was ever a defining moment in my career when I realized no matter how small we are, we can make a difference, it was during that time. And I'll never forget when we were dropping off the gifts in preparation for the Christmas party. We even took Santa down. And this was a very historically poor area. A lot of the kids didn't have a lot to begin with. So it ended up, we were told, being kind of like the best Christmas ever for these kids. But we were unloading the stuff, and there was a young man who was there with his mom. He was probably about 19 or 20, had just gotten his first garage apartment before the flood hit. He had autism, and he ended up being trapped in the apartment for a couple days because they couldn't get to him. Oh. So they ended up getting him out by boat. And so we're unloading the gifts, and I feel a tap on my shoulder, and I turn around, and he's not looking at me, and I understood that, but he said, "I just want to thank you so much for what you guys did for all of us and coming all the way down here." And his mom just like whipped around and looked at him, and she looked at me and she started crying, and she said, "He doesn't do that. Like, he doesn't talk, and he's not one to just talk to a stranger." And that has stuck with me, and I think that was really what began kind of for us at Williamstown Bank as a team. Oh, we're small, but we can still make a difference. And then from there, it was like, okay, what can we do now, or what? And then the coffee shop just kind of evolved as an idea, several years later, just as something that was, okay, this is something we can do very local and give back. So
yeah, you seem so passionate, and a lot of people, have jobs that they don't like, yeah. But it seems like you really enjoy.
I do enjoy it, and again, like, the days can be long. Sometimes it feels like you're on the clock 24 hours a day, and there's maybe an emergency, or there's a window open in the bank, and we got to see if there's at midnight. And when my husband was on shift work years ago, and it's like, okay, there's a window open at the bank and the cops are outside. There's an alarm going off, and I need to take my daughter, who's asleep in bed, who's 5, go up to the bank. It's like midnight. Mr. Cobb, can you sit with my daughter while I go in to make sure that the bank is okay? Bank robbery, and stuff like that. I've been through several robberies, and
oh my gosh,
I worked at the Parkersburg office, and I was actually 7 months pregnant with my daughter.
Oh, really?
And it was the worst robbery that I've personally been through. The guy came in and he jumped the counter and he held a gun up to
like
my
in the
team.
Movies?
I mean, it was.
No, I didn't even think about bank robberies.
Robberies. So you do experience a lot of ups and downs, but again, I truly believe that I'm here for a reason. I don't necessarily always know why, but just seeing what we're able to do for the community, and I think for me, that's fulfilling. And I want to be able to, at the end of my career, look back and say, it wasn't merely a job for me. It was a way that I was able to use the platform that I was given to do something that had lasting impact for many people, organizations. And again, it's because if you don't, who will? And I think we all have a little part to play in that. And that's, I guess, what really, you asked, am I ambitious? What drives me is being able to give back and to be able to help, as I've been helped and my family has been helped in our time of need. And I think it makes us a better community when people can do that.
Yeah, and I've told a couple of my guests this, but I always appreciate that you talk to us at WTAP because, you could, like, if someone's not willing to talk to us, we can't force them to. So, So the fact that you, like I say you on like a lot, and so we appreciate that you talk to us and keep that line of communication open because I think, like you said, it serves the community. So
yeah, that's kind of a funny story too, because back when we kind of got started and stuff like that, it was, we need someone to be the face of the bank. Sharon.
Oh yeah, you get voluntold.
Here you go. Yeah, here you go. But it does become something, and we appreciate, just the help that WTAP has given us over the years, and just promoting what we're doing and helping us share our story, because it's another way of reaching people that we may not be able to through our platforms.
Right, yeah, because some people, run the other way when they see us.
Some just get pushed in front of you, but we're happy to support you. You guys do a lot of good things for the community. The telethon that was just hosted for North Star was amazing. And, I've recently been named the president of the board of North Star. And
congratulations.
It was just such an amazing thing that, the stories when we were at the mall that day, and, kind of in between, the live feeds and stuff like that, the stories that people came up, and, the grandma that came up and she had $5 and she said, I don't have much to give, but my granddaughter was sexually abused and I raised her, and I want North Star to have this, and I want, so helping get the word out about what these amazing organizations are doing in our community. And again, there are so many of them. I could name a dozen of them, but they need that support more than anything, because it's a really tough time for those nonprofit organizations right now. So if you all doing the things that you do, that really is a good thing for the community.
Yes. Well, Sharon, I know I've been gabbing your ear off. Is there anything you'd like to add before I let you start your weekend?
No, I just thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure to be on here, and I just hope that if you are a female, whether you're going into finance or whatever you're going into, you realize that, really it's your call, what you do, and the world is out there. Don't be afraid to just go for it, and know that there's definitely room for female leaders out there.
Yes. More female bank CEOs. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in for this latest episode of Women of the MOV, and I'll see you next time.